everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect. I am your host, Naveen Ganglani, as always. So today I'm going to do a bit of a solo episode. I'm just going to give some quick thoughts, instant reactions to today's pretty big and significant UAAP game day. We had 4 games today, as we've had for most of the season 85. It's been quick season 85, season 84, and season 85 in the same year. It's quite the experience to have 2 UAP seasons in the same year. A lot of work for media for sure, and content wise, but definitely great for the fans, including myself. I'm a fan of the UAP, and it's just been a roller coaster, but in a good way. But I digress. I guess I just needed to share about that a little bit. But going back to today's game, so we had UP versus UST, DLSU versus NU, Ateneo versus UE, Adamson versus FEU. So not a lot of close games today. Only the Ateneo UE one really went down the wire. It went to overtime. Adamson FEU got a little tight at the end, but it was a one-sided really most of the way, all of the way. And okay, so let's start. So UP, they waste no time in bouncing back after their tough defeat to Salle this past Sunday. They come back, they use a third quarter rally to defeat UST. It was a good way to get back to their good vibes, shall we say, right? They have a small hiccup against DLSU. That game is in their control in the third quarter. They let it go. DLSU comes roaring back. In fairness to UP, LaSalle just, really played well that day too. But the good thing, if you're a UP fan, is watching the performance against UST. Now, the Growling Tigers aren't exactly the biggest or most impactful challenge you can have this season. But UP, after a little bit of an inconsistent first half where they let UST hang around, they went up, they let UST come back. UP uses a third quarter rally to escape, thanks to what I thought was a great performance by JD Kagulangan. Now, the stats will show that JD didn't score a lot, but he did a great job distributing the ball. He had 8 assists, if I'm not mistaken, couple of rebounds, couple of steals, and just his decision making was awesome in that third period. That whole second half, really, he was taking shots when they were great looks. Even when he had good looks, he passed up good looks for great looks. There was one possession, I posted this on my Instagram story. My account is at @bynavsg on Instagram, my work account. And he had a good look at the three, but decided to hold for half a second more, then dished it to a cutting Cyril Gonzalez, who scored the layup in the middle of the paint. Cyril also had a good game himself. Carl was great. Malik was great. Overall, UP is in a good place heading into the rematch against Ateneo this weekend, which is going to be critical if UP wants to clinch that #1 seed. Personally, I think UP will end up either 1 or 2, so they're going to be twice to beat nonetheless. But that game against Ateneo this Sunday, it's more than just a who's going to end up higher in the standings. It's you're setting the tone. You want to win that game because you're setting the tone against a team that you could potentially meet down the line. Now, the Fighting Maroons have beaten the Blue Eagles 4 out of the last 5 games. If you're a Fighting Maroons fan, you'd like to see them continue having that momentum going into a potential final series later on in a few weeks, knowing that Ateneo hasn't beaten you yet, because mentally that is some sort of advantage. So I think UP is, like I said, they're in a great position right now. They're going to have a great chance to beat Ateneo. And what I had heard was that even if UP had clinched the #1 seed already by today, they would have still played their key guys against Ateneo, even in a non-bearing game, because that's a big game. And those players, the coaching staff, they know the magnitude of that contest and the rival that they face, and they want to get the win, and that's what their goal is going to be. Now, let's move on to UST. Nick Cabanero had another solid game, but he did hurt his ankle today. And if you follow him on Instagram, he posted a picture of how his ankle looked right after the game, and it looked like someone inserted a tennis ball on his ankle. I swear, it was huge. And it was serious enough where exiting the arena, he had to be seated in a wheelchair so he could be pushed out. Now, I don't know what's the latest update, but he did tell me he plans on playing the next game on Saturday, which is 3 days from now. Now, health-wise, clearly that's not exactly maybe the best idea. You need to rest an ankle, especially if it balloons that much. But hey, it probably will come down to Nick's choice. And he's a competitive guy. He loves to win. And he's told me this when I've talked to him. So obviously this season has been hard on him, but he does love UST. Now there's been some conversation in social media the last few weeks. Is Nick Cabanero going to stay in UST? Is he going to transfer? The player empowerment era that we've seen in the NBA, I wouldn't say it's player empowerment in the UAAP, but players are taking advantage of their abilities and skills in the sense that they want to find the best environment that's suited for them. Now, I'm not reporting this. I'm not saying that Nick told me this, but there has been noise around. I've heard from other sources that, schools might be interested to recruit Nick, or maybe not even schools, maybe international teams. Nothing is concrete yet, nothing is final. What I do know is that Nick loves UST and he would love to see UST have a competitive team next season. The question is, will that happen? Will UST have the financials, the sponsorship, the support to push that team in the same tier as UP, Ateneo, LaSalle in terms of resources wise? Because that's the reality now. Even NU, you can add NU to that list. That's the reality now of the UAP. To compete, you need to have a good coach, more than one star player. You need to have blue chip recruits who can be stars on different game days. And you need resources. You need financials. You need to be able to recruit. When you look at a team like Adamson, they have a great, great coach. They have a solid culture. They have a star player, Jerome, who's magnificent, but they also struggle out of the gates this season a little bit. That's because their team isn't as deep as the other bigger programs might be. So if you're UST and historically you're a team that competes for UAP championships, and by the way, that UST crowd, when they're a competitive team, they are so fun to watch. They are passionate. They love their team. It would be nice to see UST be competitive again, but if they are not, I'm just not 100% sure if Nick is going to stay there. Now, again, I'm not reporting this, I'm just guessing this, but I do know that Nick has told me that he loves UST and long term he would like to stay, but also he likes to win. Next game, DLSU NU. So DLSU, are they peaking at the right time? They've won 3 straight games since the break. They win via the CJ Austria buzzer beater. By the way, LaSalle Adamson are 6-6 each now in the standings. How big is that CJ Austria buzzer beater, right? So CJ is the buzzer beater. They come back, beat UP, and then they outplay NU, honestly, from like the halfway point of the first quarter till the rest of the game. So what's changed? They're doing this with Winston still hurt, by the way. Winston comes in for like 1 second earlier. Coach Derek Pumarin says after the game it's because they want him to have a feel of the game because he's been out for so long, which does make sense. But also, we know that Shawnee needed to play today and the rest of the games if he wants to stay eligible for the MVP. So maybe, I'm not saying it is, but maybe that's a factor too. But they won comfortably even if he didn't have an impact. And what have they done differently, LaSalle? Because they're finally playing like the LaSalle team many expected them to be before the season. Now, they made a few changes. One is, if you look at the rotation, some guys are getting more minutes. Joaquin Manuel hasn't played the last 2 games. He didn't play last game against UP, didn't play today after having consistent minutes in the first round. Now, in fairness to Waki, he is the team captain, right? He is the veteran of the team, and he's taking this well. His attitude in the bench has been good. He's still encouraging teammates, laughing with teammates, joking around. He's not sulking or showing that he's disappointed. And I don't know what the conversation was, or if he was told that he wouldn't get played minutes. Pumarin did say that during the break, the players had a players-only meeting, although specifics of that conversation was not revealed. Maybe it was in this meeting where players decided, okay, you can play the minutes or this and that. We don't know. But he hasn't been playing and his minutes have been given to Abadam and Makalalag. And so far, it's paying off for the Green Archers. But Waki deserves credit as well for taking it on the chin and not making it about himself. It's about the team right now. But the young guys are stepping up. Abadam didn't exactly score as well as he did against UP today, but you could see like with him on the court, the energy is just different because he brings a level of athleticism and explosiveness in transition. He can attack, he can pull up from mid-range. Makalalag also has that nice baseline drive. He makes good decisions with these passes. Makalalag, he gets to the paint and kicks it out to open guys. And you don't see it so often because his minutes are still kind of limited, but he's produced good minutes so far. And the rotation is different. Pamarin, when I asked him post game, like, why the change in the rotation, he said it's because he wanted to balance the scoring and the production of the starting unit and the bench. So the starters recently have been Estacio, Penny Estacio, who had his best college career game today. Penny Estacio, Mark Nonoy, Bright Noanco, who also deserves credit. He's played better recently. And then I forget who's the rest of the starting five right now, but the bench unit, it's been good the last two games. Nelly is coming off the bench with Michael Phillips and Kevin Kimbao, and then you insert whoever else remains from the first unit or whoever else you can insert from the bench. And it's that Kiambao, Nelly, Phillips trio with the bench unit has been very good for DLSU. The key, of course, is to have Estacio and the starting unit make sure that it doesn't get too far away from the Salle, the game, the lead. They've been doing a good job. Penny today scored 13 points in the third quarter alone. He outscored NU 13-9 in the third period. He was hitting jump shots like Aljun Malesha in that number 11 jersey. And you can see that the team trusts him. His belief in himself is growing. Pumarin mentioned something interesting where he said at the start of the season he was getting mad at Penny a lot, but that was a good sign because Penny needed to be scared if he wasn't minding Penny anymore. And so far, it looks like the work is paying off for Estacio, who used to be an FEU high school standout. And it also goes to show once again that just because some of these UAP rookies are big time players in high school, they might need the transition period still in college, especially if they're not getting the usage and the minutes that they were used to from high school. But then Nelly has been playing better too. Michael Phillips looks a little healthier now. He's been bothered by like a hamstring issue. He was bothered by a hamstring issue in the first round. And Kiambao he still has some turnovers from time to time, but you can see that with Nelly in the court with him, with Phillips, he just seems to be playing better. The question for the rotation is what's going to happen when Winston comes back? Are you going to insert him there in the starting unit in Nonoy's spot? Because they are expecting Winston to still come back this season. Then does that mean that Nonoy goes to the bench? Now, Nonoy's had a really tough season so far, but he's played better as of late. And he does deserve the minutes still because when he does hit one or two jump shots and he can cause some havoc in the press on defense for some steals, it can be really helpful for DLSU. So that's something to watch out for. But yeah, DLSU is playing great so far. Now, they have two big games coming up against UE this weekend and then against UST to end the season. They need to win both games to assure themselves of a Final Four spot. We'll get more into the standings later. Now, we've seen some teases of LaSalle like building momentum this season, and each time it does, it feels like they take one step forward, two steps back. But now they've looked the best they have all season. So is this how they actually finally get on that level of consistency that they've been hoping for? We shall find out. NU, it was a tough game. They came in as one of the hottest teams in the UAP, winning 4 straight games, and they started the game good. They were up like 6-2, I think 8-2 even, but then they just took their collective foot off the gas pedal. It felt like LaSalle was quicker to lose balls. LaSalle was dictating the pace. LaSalle's defense was too much for them. And then NU also lost Kian Baclaan early in the second half because he was called for a technical foul in the first half and then was called for another technical foul in the second half for faking a foul on a jump shot, which meant an automatic disqualification. And without Kian, I think NU missed another one of those shot creators on offense. And then on defense, they were having a hard time stopping DLSU because so many guys were contributing. Nelly was hitting jump shots. Kemba was doing his thing. Michael Phillips was dominant on the boards. Abadam and Makalalag contributed here and there. Astacio was on fire. Nonoy was hitting some shots. So the defense, which has been NU's calling card, wasn't exactly there today. Not for lack of effort. I think DLSU just played a good game. And then on offense, JLC got hurt for a little bit. He had a bit of a rhythm early in the contest. So when he left, it kind of cost him. It was just a bad day for NU. It felt like one of those games where you watch the game tape, you look at the mistakes, but at the same time, you know that you're not this bad as a team. A couple of unfortunate events happen, and that will take place in a UAAP season. What sucks for Baklan is this disqualification could potentially take him out of the Rookie of the Year race running. Now, this is still going to be subject to the commissioner's review. He's still going to decide whether the second technical foul or even the first was merited and what it's going to mean for Kian the rest of the way. But not only does it mean Kian might potentially be disqualified from winning Rookie of the Year, it might also mean he might be suspended for NU's next game, which is against Adamson this Saturday. If that does take place, that Kian won't get to play, then that's good news for Adamson because NU's offense does need that bakla and creativity. Now, sometimes he could misfire from the field, but they also need his pull-up game, his ability to get to the paint, create for others. He's an important part of the team. But NU still has a talented roster. They just have to reset, and there's still going to be a handful for whoever they face in the Final Four. So, next game, Ateneo defeats UE in overtime. Valiant, amazing effort by the Red Warriors. They should have won that game, to be honest. Ateneo was misfiring all game from 3, but the Blue Eagles got the job done late in the contest. Now, second straight win for Ateneo in a close game set up. They beat FE the last time, rallied from 19 down, won late in the fourth quarter. Here, they forced overtime. Dave hits a huge shot, huge three-pointer. They were off the whole game, but he made the one that counted. They win it in OT, even if they went down by 4 points. Kwame eventually scores in the post, gives them the lead for good. They go up by 3. UE's offense slows down. Ateneo pulls away with the win. Now, Coach Tab said after last game against FEU that these close games could be good for the Blue Eagles. And these are the kind of close games they didn't have last season entering the Final Four. So is this kind of experience going to be helpful, or should we be worried that they're having a hard time defeating teams like FEU and UE, teams they should be defeating? Well, I look at it more on the former. I think that these close games are going to help them. Ateneo is more talented than most of the teams in the league. They're as talented as Salle. They're just a little bit less talented than UP in terms of the individual talents in the team. I would say they're a little bit over NU, but they need this experience, tight game situations. Where does the ball go to? I still think they can be overly reliant on the 3-point shot sometimes. And when you live by the 3, there's a good chance that you also die by the 3. So is that going to manifest itself in the Final Four? Or is this kind of late game context going to give them familiarity so they know how to execute when the stakes are even higher? The next game against UP is going to say a lot. Hi everybody, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast because I want to share about a local brand that I am collaborating with known as Whale Nutrition Co. Now, they are a supplement brand that will enhance your workouts, your fitness, your lifestyle, your mental well-being. They're proudly local. Ingredients are sourced globally, but they are locally produced and packed. They're FDA approved and loved with thousands of reviews on Shopee, Lazada, Beauty Manila, and other outlets. You can check those reviews for yourself. They have all natural protein powder sweetened with stevia, which is a plant-based sweetener, which is a better option for sugar if you're counting calories or looking to be healthier. And they have more than 20 flavors of protein powders to choose from. My personal favorites, the clean caramel, the mocha java, and the salted chocolate. But it's not just protein powders that they have. They also have BCA ACE to help you out with amino acids. They have vegan protein options, whey isolate protein options, creatine. They also have shakers and other merchandise to make you feel like you're part of the Whale family. It's pretty awesome if you ask me. Now, here's some great news. They also announced recently that their Just Ube Milk flavor is back in stock. This was really popular when it first came out, went out of stock real quick, but now that it's back in stock, do grab the opportunity to try it because it's delicious. I tried it for myself the last few days and I was absolutely thrilled. A lot of people, they say that after their workouts, they're not exactly excited to have protein because it's not yummy, protein shakes. Well, I'm telling you, Whale stuff is absolutely delicious and I'm excited to do my workouts in large part because I know after my workouts, I'm going to get to try their stuff, their items, which are, like I mentioned, just great. So do check them out. And I have another set of good news for my listeners. Listeners of this podcast will get 5% off on their whale orders by using the promo code TNE. Again, that's letter T, letter N, letter E. That stands for the Navs effect. Go to their website, that's whale.co, WHEYL.co, and when you're in the checkout and you enter promo code TNE, you will get 5% off your order. Make sure to visit them on social media as well if you want to learn more about them. I will put links of that on the description box of this podcast or YouTube, wherever you are watching, and get the chance to experience whale for yourself. All right, now back to the episode. Say a lot. UE, Luis Villegas was just incredible today. He's been incredible all season. He won't win the MVP, but he'll deserve it as much as whoever does win it. The defense he was playing on stretches against Kwame today and he was giving up like 4 or 5 inches, but he was trying all tricks in the book. This guy is a veteran. He played college ball in the States, so he's not a rookie. He's a one and done player who's a vet. He knows the tricks. He knows what to do off the ball to make it hard for bigger guys to catch the ball. On offense, he spreads the floor, can hit the three, can dribble, can create for others. Unselfish guy. He's going to be such a solid pro player in the Philippines. I don't have a doubt about that. And the Paranada Bros, of course, Sawat played well too. I really wish UE had a foreign student athlete this season, because you could see it late in the game today too. The rebounding was a major issue. They just couldn't rebound the ball, and they couldn't increase their amount of possessions to give themselves a better chance of winning. But next season, I think that's going to change. I did talk to someone with UE who said they have a few options in terms of a foreign student athlete that they can bring in to improve their chances. But it's a great season. They've been like a cellar dweller for so long. So even if they end up with 4 or 5 wins, it's going to be a good step for the program. The question now is, even as that foreign student athlete does come in, are they going to have new recruits? Because take note, Villegas is a one and done player, so he won't be around anymore. They still do have Gianni Stevens, who I thought played better towards the latter round of the UAP season. And can they recruit more firepower? Can their young stud, MJ Langit, earn some minutes next season? Because he's talented, but he didn't exactly get acclimated to the program as quickly as they might have wanted him to. So maybe with extra time, he's going to get to work on his game and be better in terms of how he can produce in Coach Jack's system. I'm definitely excited to see how UE performs next season. Let's see, next game. Adamson, Jerome Lastimosa. This was the guy who 6 days ago thought his season was over, and today he scores. Let's see, real quick. How well did Jerome do today? He only played a total of 17 minutes, ends up with 23 points, 7 out of 10 from the field. Duanga had 18.7 boards, Cedric Manzano 10 points, 13 rebounds. It was so funny because after the LaSalle game and before the UE Ateneo game, I was chatting a bit with Evanelli, and we see Jerome, and then they say hi and they're talking for a bit. So I take a picture of them and I'm like, so guys, who's the best point guard in the UAAP? Because for me, I think it's somewhere between Jerome, JD Cagulangan, LJ Gonzalez when he's healthy, and Evanelli. So Nelly, Lastimosa, JD, LJ. I think Baclan will get there in like 2-3 seasons. So Evan and Jerome point at each other at the same time, literally. They're like pointing at each other, and you could see like the friendship they had. And Evan was joking around. Evan was telling Jerome, "Oh, huwag ka na maglaro." And Jerome was just laughing. He wasn't like saying yet if he was going to play today or not. But of course, LaSalle and Adamson are fighting for that last Final Four spot. So they're joking around. Jerome does end up playing, and he was incredible today. Even not at 100%, you could see how he just impacts the game in so many ways. His jump shot is reliable. He can get to the rim. He's crafty. And he doesn't just get to the paint or get to the rim because he's fast or because he can accelerate. It's because he has underrated footwork. He knows where to balance himself, where to go to pull off his moves. And he also knows which space, which seems to attack when the defenders like give him that little bit of daylight. And on defense too, he wasn't obviously like running around the defense like he usually would, but he was still trying to contest shots and he was still setting up the ball for his teammates. We don't know yet if Jerome's coming back next season. I personally don't think he knows yet himself too. I mean, emotionally, imagine he went from thinking his season was done to now he has the chance to lead Adamson back to the Final Four, albeit with a hard schedule coming up. But that's where his focus is now. And personally, as a basketball fan, as someone who covers the UAP, I'm just excited that we get at least a few more games of Jerome Lastimosa because he is a great basketball player, but an even better human being, down to earth guy, incredible. FEU, wow. They missed the Final Four for the first time since 2012. 2012, that year, they missed the Final Four. They lost a playoff 4 versus 5 versus LaSalle. I remember that. I was watching it at MOA Arena with my friends. I was still a college student, in fact. Jesus, 10 years. My God. Anyway, I digress. FEU is also missing the Final Four only for the sixth time in the Final Four era since 1993. They're missing the Final Four for only the second time in the last 15 years. That is consistency. They won two championships during that span, 2005, technically three when you include the one that LaSalle gave back, and 2015, and a bunch of Final Four appearances. They're always competitive, but I guess this was the season that just eventually caught up to them. They lose RJ during the offseason. RJ is expected to be their main guy. He goes to Korea. LJ Gonzalez is playing out of his mind in the first game of the season against Ateneo. Then he hurts his hamstring. I remember after that game, he was having a hard time just like walking or balancing himself in the locker room afterwards because it was really painful, but he was braving through it. So he gets hurt. Cyrus Torres gets off to a putrid shooting start season wise. He picks it up later on. Chuente, it hasn't exactly developed really well. And Ano Nuevo takes a few games to get used to what they're trying to do. Sahonia gets going, but it takes a few games. And they had a solid offseason. They made it all the way to the finals of the Phil Oil Preseason Cup. But the way they performed this game, so they trail Adamson 27-4 at the end of the first quarter. They rally back, they get it down to 6, down to like 5 towards the end of the fourth, but it's just too little, too late. The start was so slow. And that was just a microcosm of how their whole season went. They started slow, they pick it up, they score some wins in classic Olsen Rosella fashion, and then it just comes up a little short at the end. So they're gonna miss the Final Four. I don't know yet what the future of the program is. I did reach out to someone to FEU for comment on how many more years the contract of Coach Olsen is. Is he going to come back next season? Are there going to be changes? Haven't received a response yet. FEU has always been a model of consistency in the sense of they bring up players from their high school program, their developmental system, or they recruit players from the provinces and they keep the same staff, same management. It's a model of consistency, and you saw it translate to consecutive Final Four appearances. But now that they are missing the Final Four, and it seems like in terms of talent, they're behind so many teams. Like they don't have as much talent as UP, they don't have as much talent as Ateneo, not as much as LaSalle, not as much as NU. Maybe same as Adamson, but then you also have UE catching up now. So is FEU going to keep it the same way as they've done it the last few years, or are we going to see some changes? Personally, I still think Coach Olsen could be the man for the job. I think he's a great coach. And all things considered, the slow start, losing RJ, players not getting off to great campaigns to begin with, he did his best keeping it all together. And I still think he's a good coach. So it's gonna be weird almost to not have FEU in the Final Four, right? Because we've just gotten so used to them being there. But knowing the Tamaraos program, they'll be back before we know it. Maybe 1-2 years, and they'll be back in the Final Four somehow. So let's take a look at the standings. Okay, so UP's number one. They're 11-2. Their remaining matchup is against Ateneo. Ateneo is 9-3. They have a remaining matchup against UP and another one against Adamson. NU is 9-4. They've got a remaining matchup against Adamson. That's this Saturday. Like I mentioned, Baclaan status on the line. DLSU 6-6. They have matchup against UE and against UST. Adamson 6-6 as well against NU Ateneo. So UP beats Ateneo on Saturday. They're the number one seed. If Ateneo beats UP, and let's assume that Ateneo also beats Adamson, then both UP and Ateneo will have 10-3 records, in which case the quotient comes to play. The quotient will be between UP and Ateneo. Now, this is assuming both teams are 10-3. Okay? UP beat Ateneo. Let's just check that to be sure. That was October 16. The final score was 76-71, a 5-point win for UP. So, if Ateneo wants to be the number 1 seed via quotient, they will have to beat UP by more than 5 points this Saturday, and they will have to beat Adamson, who will be playing for their Final Four lives next Wednesday. Both games at Araneta Coliseum. So it's obviously a big game on Saturday. Well, obviously, if they win and they don't win by more than 5, then they'll be number 2. Assuming, again, they beat Adamson, UP will be number 1. So they'll both have the twice to beat advantage. And they will have that mental edge, at least, of getting to tell themselves, okay, we beat UP. But if they do beat UP by more than 5, they will be the number 1 seed. So to some degree, well, there are many layers to it, right? Because who would they want to face? Would they want to face NU or LaSalle? Because LaSalle, if they get in, would be number 4, NU would likely be number 3. And who would you rather face if you're the Blue Eagles? I think UP, their mindset is they want to be number 1. They don't exactly mind so much who they want to face. Now, same for Ateneo. I even asked Ange Kwame this earlier before their game, like, who would you rather face, NU or LaSalle? He said, it doesn't matter. They're ready to face anybody. They want to go through the best if they want to be the champions, which is a great mindset to have. But that's an interesting dynamic just to watch out for this weekend. I want to see how that plays out because that's going to dictate matchups. And of course, again, I have to stress the fact that even if Ateneo beats UP this Saturday, a game against Adamson isn't certain victory. Now, another possible situation here is, let's say UP beats Ateneo. That means Ateneo goes down to 9-4. NU is also 9-4. Now, NU has a game against Adamson this Saturday. So, if NU beats Adamson and they go up to 10-4, Ateneo loses to UP, Ateneo goes down to 9-4. That means Ateneo will have to beat Adamson to go up to 10-4 so that their series, their Final Four against NU ends up being a best-of-3 series. That's assuming, again, that Ateneo loses to UP. Now, if there's a tie between 2 and 3 in the standings, it becomes a virtual best-of-3. So that's something to look out for as well. Is it going to play out that way? And then, of course, the race for number 4. Now, LaSalle has UE and UST remaining on their schedule. UE is 4-9. UST is 1-11. Adamson has NU and Ateneo. NU is 9-4. Ateneo is 9-3. So standings-wise, LaSalle has the easier path to the Final Four than Adamson. But knowing LaSalle, of course, you can just be sure to say that they're going to be guaranteed of a win. And Adamson, if they get this version of Jerome Lastimosa the rest of the way, that's going to be huge. But definitely, this last 2 play dates of the UAP is going to be ridiculously exciting. There's a lot to play for the 5 teams remaining in the standings picture. This could go down to the very last play date next Wednesday. And what a joy. It's been fun. There's so much to talk about. I'm going to leave it here for now, but definitely looking forward to see how the rest of the season goes. And I cannot wait for the Final Four and finals and everything that's going to come with those series. Okay. Thank you for joining me for this podcast. Thank you for listening or watching. Whether you listen via Spotify or watch via YouTube, do not forget to check out Whale Nutrition, our partner, co-collaborator on this podcast. They are great for your health needs, mental well-being, supplements, fitness, whatever you need. They got you. Use the code letters T and E, stands for the Navs effect, T and E, to get 5% off your orders on the website. Till then, thank you everybody. Catch you all at the games.